Muhammad.
To carry on the programs, I have broken down, roughly estimated, just to 1,000. Now if you take all that, we are already at negative of 2,200, 2,200 and whatever. The total amount now is 22,200. So we are always in negative. Now that negative covers up from our membership. Our memberships are very important. So any brothers are not paying the membership, there are some advantages to be a member of our Jamaat. That carries us on for the rest of the year. And if we don't have us, donate with your heart. And whatever it is, it can go with $1, it can go to $100, it can go to $1,000. It depends on how their budgets are. But every dollar counts at our Jamaat, and we'll appreciate. Thank you very much. Assalamu
alaikum. Just to give an overview or an introduction. So alhamdulillah, this year we have Sheikh Anwar Jaffer, and just a little about this brother, that he was born and raised in London in England. And since a young age, he was keen in delving deeper into Islamic studies to continue his studies in the seminary, where he currently resides with his family. Inshallah, praying for the dear Sheikh, that Allah increase his tawfiqat and he continues to strive and these Islamic studies and continues to excel and is successful in this world and the hereafter. If he can request the dear brother, dear scholar, to address this majlis azza. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Mu'ajjal.
Surah al-Mubarakah al-Fatiha. Can I request the brothers and the sisters to move forward as much as possible, please? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'aliyyi al-'azim. A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Sallallahu wa sallam alayka ya sayyidi wa mawlaya ya Rasulallah. صلى الله وسلم عليك يا سيدي ومولاي وابن مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم وقوله الحق وهو أصدق الصادقين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 أشهر آمنا به صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Dear elders, scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As human beings, one of the most fundamental skills of success in dunya is the art of storytelling. That whenever you know a person who is able to effectively and eloquently relate a story to you, you would know intrinsically that this person, innately this person is successful in dunya. Whether it be in his professional lives or whether it be in his personal lives when he engages with others on a personal level. For example, you know that this person, because he has the art of telling a good, eloquent story, this person is successful. And the art of being able to relate a story and the art of being able to narrate a story is one of the skills of dunya that people need to establish, because as human beings, naturally we are attracted to people who can tell a good story. One of the secrets of giving a good lecture, for example, as a public speaker or any public speaker in any field, whether it be a professor in the university, whether it be a teacher in a classroom, or for example, a preacher, one of the most effective skills is to be able to relate stories to people. Because people relate to stories. When I was growing up, for example, I was exposed to a number of different stories. And of course, the youths here, they are exposed to a number of stories. Whenever they go to school, stories are related to them. Whenever they go to the madrasa, for example, the teachers of the madrasa would relate stories to them. Because the art of storytelling, what it does is it effectively transfers information from one person to another. It allows the person listening to the story to understand and derive lessons from that story itself. You find, for example, when you examine the media or the world of the media today, Hollywood, Bollywood, yes, it's all the foundations of such a media, or such a representation of such a media is based on storytelling. That if there is a blockbuster that's coming out, I am willing to pay tens of dollars to go watch a particular movie in the cinemas. And if I go watch a movie in the cinemas, I expect to be entertained by such a movie. That if I was to pay, for example, tens of dollars to watch a movie that has plot holes in its story, for example, or has no story whatsoever, even though that particular movie may have A-class actors and actresses, that movie will flop. The reason is because I cannot relate to that particular production, because there's no story in it. Or there is a story, but it has many plot holes in it. You find, for example, teachers who are successful and professors who are successful in dunya, in their careers, in their paths. They are successful because they are able to relate stories to the people. You look at, for example, people who are in their professional lives, whether you're working in a bank, or whether you're working in whatever fields that you or people work in. If you're able to deliver a presentation with the art of telling and narrating a story, you're more likely to succeed than any other person in that particular field. The art of storytelling is one of the key fundamentals aspects of attaining success in dunya. Likewise, when you look towards the Holy Quran, you'll find that the Holy Quran, from the very first page until the last page, is full of stories. Many stories are mentioned within the Holy Quran. And what's interesting is that when you examine these stories of the Holy Quran, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to share stories of three different personalities, or three groups of personalities. The first personality are the divine messengers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, shares with us, begins to examine the stories of the prophets of Allah, from Adam alayhi salam to his sons Qabil and Habil, to, for example, his grandson Nuh, Ibrahim alayhi salam, Musa, Isa, even the holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to share the stories of divine messengers. Likewise, the second category of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relates the stories of are the enemies of these prophets. So whenever he speaks about Adam alayhi salam, he speaks about Shaitan, Iblis. Whenever he speaks about, for example, Nuh, he speaks about Qawm Nuh and his son, how they used to, for example, cause him hardship in his life. Whenever Allah speaks about the divine messengers, he always speaks about their enemies as well. Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Nimrod. Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Fir'aun. When it comes to Rasulullah, for example, Allah speaks about his community, the people of Jahiliyyah. And what's interesting is, over the next 10 nights or 10, 11 nights, the common theme in these lectures is that you'll understand that history has a very strong tendency to repeat itself. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Adam alayhi salam, the common theme, or one of the themes that he speaks about, is his struggle with Shaitan, this battle between Haqq and Batil. And you find that in the time of Nuh, again alayhi salam, Nuh fought with his community. There was a battle between Haqq and Batil. Musa alayhi salam fought against Fir'aun, the battle between Haqq and Batil. This is something, it's a common theme that in every age it exists. Even today, although we don't live in the time of a divine messenger, and of course our divine messenger is in ghaibat, the struggle between Haqq and Batil still exists today. The prophecy of when the Imam alayhi salam There are many narrations which prophesize the battle that will take place, the battle between Haqq and Batil. So this is a common theme that exists in every generation. And of course there are many things, many aspects in history which tend to repeat itself. We'll examine these slowly in the coming days, in the coming days as well. And then the third group of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about are not divine messengers. Nor are they, for example, considered to be the enemies of the messengers, but they are considered to be normal people, normal personalities. But they had a strong inclination towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That although they were not prophets, they were highly by name in the Holy Quran. In fact, an entire surah is dedicated to such a personality. You have the likeness of mother of Musa alayhi salam. Yes, she had a strong inclination towards Allah. Allah mentions her in the Holy Quran. The likeness of Maryam alayhi salam. That she has a whole surah dedicated to her as well. That Allah has a whole surah dedicated to her, honoring her. That although she was not a prophet, she was a godly person. And because she had this intrinsic, because she had this strong attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah praises her in the Holy Quran. Likewise, you have people like Qarun. Qarun was an enemy of Nabi Musa alayhi salam. Abu Jahl, for example, mentioned in the Holy Quran. So you find that different personalities are mentioned in the Holy Quran, and Allah begins to relate their stories. But what's interesting is that these stories are not there in the Holy Quran for us to seek entertainment from. They're not, we don't relay these stories and remind ourselves the stories of Ibrahim and Musa and Isa just to merely entertain ourselves and seek pleasures from. It's not like watching a movie. Yes, I may watch a movie 10, 15 times to seek pleasure from it. But it's not the same when I read the story of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. When I read the stories of the prophets of Allah, I am supposed to learn from their lifestyle. I am supposed to learn how they used to live in their time. Because remember, this rule exists. It's part of the Holy Quran that history tends to repeat itself. This is the sunnah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in every generation. And I say this to the youths as well. That the problems that you face in your lives today, don't think that your parents have not gone through them. Your parents have most definitely gone through them. So instead of, for example, and I find this to be part of, it's a tragedy in every community where there is a generation gap between the parents and the children, in the sense that the children do not have a strong relationship with their parents. Instead of cutting off relationships with one's parents, for example, it needs to be the opposite. We need to create an ilaqah, we need to create a relationship with our parents so that we can learn from them. Because the problems that I face in my life, for example, I can learn from my parents. I understand that my father went through the same problems when he was my age. How did he go through his problems? Was he successful or did he fail, for example? If he failed, then I should learn how not to fail like him. If he was successful, then I should copy him and I should mimic him. We have this tendency to do this in dunya, that whenever we see successful personalities, we mimic their actions. We copy their actions. Who are the famous personalities in this day and age? Elon Musk, yes, the founder of Facebook. I can't pronounce his name, by the way. You have personalities like Jeff Bezos, for example, the creator of Amazon. These are profound personalities. Why? Because they are worth billions. Yes, they are worth billions. Success in our lives today, unfortunately, is what a person is worth financially. So what do people do? And this is a career. They've made careers out of this. They copy what these people do. Yes, they try and examine which areas of their lives need to be established and copied. So for example, if Jeff Bezos wakes up 3 a.m. in the morning, I need to stop waking up 3 a.m. in the morning. Yes, I constantly complain that I have no time throughout the day. Maybe I should wake up earlier. Yes, so that I have more time. If he jogs, for example, 45 minutes a day, I need to start jogging. If he eats a particular meal, I need to start eating a particular meal. If he reads a book a day, I need to start reading a book a day. We mimic the actions of famous or strong or successful personalities. The Quran comes from a different direction. Same principle is applied in the Holy Quran, but it comes from a different direction. The Quran speaks about Ibrahim alayhi salam. The Quran speaks about Isa. The Quran speaks about Rasulullah. Our responsibility is to examine the lives of these prophets, to try and see what they did in their lives that made them successful, immortalized in the pages of the Holy Quran, so that I try and mimic their actions, so I seek success in dunya as well. So for example, when Ibrahim alayhi salam used to pray salah, I should start praying salah. If Ibrahim was respectful to his father, I should be respectful to my father. If Ibrahim alayhi salam, for example, migrated and he upheld his religion and he was monotheist, I should uphold these values in my lives as well. If Rasulullah, for example, came to his community and he said, and he came with the best of morality, I should hold the best of morality in my life as well. Yes? So we should try and mimic the lives of these famous personalities. And the idea is that the stories that are related within the Holy Quran, that are narrated in the Holy Quran, my responsibility is to try and examine these stories and learn from them. Not just seek entertainment and read them as pleasure. Because unfortunately what happens is, and it's a beautiful concept, that some of these stories are now made into TV series. But we just watch these TV series as what? As a form of entertainment, isn't it? Yusuf alayhi salam has how many series? How many episodes? 40 episodes? We watch them just for the sake of entertainment. It's not for the sake of learning from them. There's a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says with regards to Nabi Yusuf that it's ahsan al-qasas. It is the best of stories. There are so many stories, so many lessons that can be learnt and derived from these personalities, that if we were to adopt these lessons in our lives, we would go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We would establish the strongest relationship with Allah and move towards success in dunya and in akhirah. So you find that for the reason why these stories are mentioned within the Holy Quran is for us to derive lessons from. It's for us to learn from. What's interesting is that within the Holy Quran, one of the reasons or one of the verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about one of the benefits of why we should relate to stories, why we should narrate stories, and especially of the previous prophets. And the reason is because it brings about conformity in our hearts. It begins to establish our hearts. It begins to give us that spiritual strength that we need. So for example, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, when he came towards his people did not accommodate him. Yes, his people fought against him. They say that in Mecca at that time, there were about 12,000, 13,000, 14,000 total population. Only a handful of them, and by handful I mean literally you can count these members by the fingers of your hands, used to follow the message of Rasulullah. The majority of them caused problems for him. They used to throw garbage at him. They used to, for example, beat him. They used to throw rocks at him. Yes, Rasulullah used to go back in his home bleeding. Yes, blood used to flow from his body, and Khadijah al-Kubra used to cater for his wounds. The people did not listen to him. Rasulullah, that psychological feeling that a person has, that I stand on one direction and I have the whole world standing on a different direction. When the whole world is against a person, for example, do you know the psychological impact it has on that particular person? The loneliness that that person feels? If anyone was to feel the same feeling in this day and age, it would push them. It's because they cannot relate to the world, or the world cannot relate to them. It's because people don't have friends. Rasulullah was in this particular position. Yes, psychologically he was being victimized. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comforts him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to relate to him the stories of the previous prophets, and said to him, Ya Rasulullah, you're not the only one who went through what you are going through. Ibrahim went through the same thing. Nuh, his own son, rejected him and his message. Nuh went through the same thing. Yes, personalities have come before you who have gone through the same issues that you are going through. And that began to comfort Rasulullah. That began to give him the strength to go on. Likewise, in this day and age, for example, if there are certain masa'ib, certain musibah that I go through in my life, misfortunes and bala, and imtihanat and examinations that I go through in my life, I need to remind myself that I'm not the only one going through this. That far greater personalities have come before me, have gone through even worse than me. And that begins to comfort me in my heart. You find, for example, when there is a mu'min in the community or a mu'minah in the community who have lost children, it is one of the greatest bala to lose children. Yes, I need to remind myself of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam in Karbala, how he lost his entire family. I need to remind myself of Zainab al-Kubra, how she lost her sons. I need to remind myself of Rasulullah, how he lost Ibrahim when he was young. That begins to comfort me, because if they were able to uphold their values and their principles, I can do it in my life as well. When a person begins to, for example, perform hijrah, I mean, we have a couple of universities in this particular location, isn't it? When a person, we have international students as well, when they have to leave their homes and their families and their culture and to move here into Canada or in the UK or wherever and to adopt a new culture alone in a land, strangers in a particular land, yes, I need to remind myself that, hold on a second, I'm not the only one who's performed hijrah in this life. Ibrahim alayhi salam had to perform hijrah. Musa alayhi salam had to perform hijrah. Rasulullah had to perform hijrah. Yes, it's not easy to leave everything behind and move to a different country and a different location and to start off a new life. They did it. I am going through it. I can relate to it. I should follow what they did. You find, for example, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins to examine stories in the Holy Quran, the word story in the Arabic language is explained by the word qissa. Qissa in Arabic means a story, or qisas means stories. But that's not the actual meaning of the word. The idea is that the word qissa means to follow the footsteps of someone else. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relates the story, the dialogue that takes place between Musa's mother and Musa's sister, Musa's mother says to his sister, she says to his sister, Kussihi, وقالت لأخته Kussihi. Musa's mother says to his sister, oh Musa's sister, whoever she is, follow his footsteps. Kussihi. Yes, whatever he does, you do the same. Wherever he goes, you go. The idea is that when I read the stories of the prophets, I need to mimic their actions in my life as well. I need to follow their footsteps, not create my own footsteps, but try and follow the footsteps of those who have succeeded in dunya and akhirah. So someone may come and ask the question. In fact, this is the primary reason why every year we congregate and we commemorate the martyrdom and the shuhada of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. One of the questions that people usually ask is, why do we every year ritualistically come towards the centers to commemorate and to congregate Abu Abdullah alayhi salam? This is the primary reason. There are so many lessons to be learned from Karbala. Karbala in itself is a madrasa. You could create an entire philosophy of life just through the event of Karbala, and you could succeed in dunya and in akhirah. One of the reasons why we congregate and commemorate and perform the azaa of Abu Abdullah every year ritualistically is because it allows us to move closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But someone may come forward and ask the question and say, well, hold on a second, why focus so much on Abu Abdullah? I mean, the Quran doesn't tell us that we should perform the azaa of Abu Abdullah, does it? The Quran doesn't say follow Karbala, follow the tragedy of Karbala and make it part of your lifestyle and so on and so forth. Why do we give so much importance to Abu Abdullah alayhi salam but not give as much importance to Rasulullah, or give as much importance to, for example, Nabi Ibrahim and Nabi Musa, yet they are mentioned in the Quran and Imam Hussein alayhi salam is not mentioned in the Holy Quran? Scholars came forward with a number of different answers, but the simplest answer that I can give is that just because it's not mentioned in the Holy Quran doesn't mean that it's not part of the religion of Islam. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam famously says, Inni tarikum fikum al-thaqalain kitabullahi wa itrati ahl bayti, that I am leaving behind the Quran and the Ahl al-Bayt. That when something is not mentioned in the Holy Quran, who do we refer to as a secondary source? We refer to the Ahl al-Bayt. Yes? The principles of Karbala is there within the Holy Quran, no doubt. But it's there between the lines and we have to read it very carefully. But it's most definitely there. But even if someone was to say that no, the concept of Karbala is not there within the Holy Quran, we refer to the Ahl al-Bayt. We don't put a big cross on it and say, well, it's not part of the deen and their Bayt, and see, well, what was the Ahl al-Bayt's position with regard to Karbala? Did they commemorate Karbala? Most definitely. Every year, ritualistically, the Ahl al-Bayt would get together and they would mourn and lament the tragedy of Karbala. Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, never forgot Karbala. Yes, he lived for over 32 years after the event of Karbala. Never did his thought and his imagination abandon what happened on the 10th of Muharram. He was known to cry and his tears never ended. You find, for example, Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, never forgot Karbala either. That every year when the month of Muharram would begin, He would hire speakers to come and narrate the story of Karbala. Today, some people, they say that there's this idea of inviting senior scholars sometimes. Yes, you find, for example, today when you go to Najaf, when you go visit the offices of the Maraja, for example, during the days of Muharram, the Maraja himself will never give a lecture. This person is considered to be the helm of knowledge, but he will never give a lecture. Instead, he would sit, he would invite a speaker, the speaker would sit on the member and he would recite lines of poetry, and the Maraja would cry listening to the lines of poetry. This happens today. This happens today in this day and age. Likewise, in the time of the Imams alayhim salam, they would invite speakers to come into their homes. The Imams would put parda in between, the ladies on one side, the men on the other. The speaker would sit on the pulpit and he would begin to recite the Masaib of Abu Abdullah, and they would cry. The Imams would cry. The Imams never sat on the pulpit and delivered lectures the way we do today. They would listen to the musibah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and they would cry. And they would encourage others to do the same. Because poetry was a powerful medium in those day and age to spread a particular message. At the time of Imam al-Rada alayhi salam, at the time of Imam Qadim alayhi salam, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, they say on the night of the 1st of Muharram, the Imam would be seen wearing black. The Imam would start wearing black clothes, and the Imam would never be seen smiling or laughing during the days of Muharram. So you find that not only did they used to encourage others to perform the Azaf of Abu Abdullah, their entire behavior changed for the following 10 nights. You find, for example, when it comes to Imam al-Rada, there's a very powerful hadith which is the foundation of our discussion today. They say Rayyan ibn Shabib, one day he enters the presence of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, and the Imam says to Rayyan, he says, Ya ibn Shabib, do you know what day it is? He says, yes, Imam, it's the beginning of the month of Muharram. The Imam then says to him, he says, it's not only the month of Muharram. The Imam says to him in a very sorrowful voice, yes, the riwayat says the Imam is crying. He says, Ya ibn Shabib, the month of Muharram was the month in which my family were killed. Now what the Imam is doing, let's examine this hadith. It's a powerful hadith, very amazing at many different levels. The Imam alayhi salam begins to give two reasons why we should today remember Abu Abdullah alayhi salam. He says the first reason why Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his entire movement against Yazid ibn Muawiyah should be remembered, he says because number one, he was killed in the month of Muharram. That's the first reason he gives. And then the second reason, he says the reason why we should remember Abu Abdullah is because the sanctity of the Ahl al-Bayt was dishonored. It was violated. These are the two reasons he gives. Number one, the sanctity of the month of Muharram was dishonored, and the sanctity of the Ahl al-Bayt were dishonored. So let's examine this one by one, inshallah, for the remainder of our time. What does the Imam mean when he says that the sanctity of the month of Muharram was dishonored? What's so special about the month of Muharram? The ayah that I began with, إِنَّ عِدَّةَ الشُّهُورِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ إِثْنَ عَشَرَ الشَّهْرَ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created time. And not only has He created time, but He has created a system where time is measured. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not only has He created time, but He has created the solar system. He has created the earth and the moon and the sun and its different orbits and the different movements that it makes throughout the year. All of this has been created for the purpose of what? Of measuring time. This is how we measure time. The movement of the sun, the earth, the rotation, the axis, and so on and so forth. All of this helps us to measure time. So not only has Allah created time, but He has created a system wherein time is measured. So when you ask the question, why do we need to measure time? Time needs to be measured, obviously, to keep our appointments and to establish discipline in our lives. This is one of the important aspects of our lives, to wake up at a particular time, to sleep at a particular time, to eat meals at a particular time. All of this allows us to do so by measuring time itself. But the more important aspect of this is so that we worship Allah better. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created certain times throughout the year which are spiritually heightened. There are special days during the year which cannot be ignored when it comes to ibadah. For example, throughout the week, Laylatul Jum'ah, or for example, Shab' Jum'ah, yes, is considered to be a spiritually heightened time. The day of Friday is a spiritually heightened time. Ibadah is encouraged. Far more encouraged on a Thursday night and on a Friday than it is compared to any other days throughout the week. The day of Arafah, for example, is a day of spirituality, it's a day of Ibadah. The day of Eid al-Ghadir, for example, just passed. It's a day of Ibadah, it's a day of spirituality. Throughout the year, for example, we have the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan is a spiritually heightened month, a month of Ibadah. Within this month of Ramadan, we have Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr is considered to be what? Khayru min alfi shahr, greater than 1,000 months. By measuring time, we can decipher, we can understand and pinpoint and say that there are certain periods of time throughout the week or throughout the month or throughout the year which we can utilize and gain closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From amongst them, Allah says, Inna iddat al-shuhur inda Allah itna ashara shahra, that the 12 months belongs to Allah, that Allah created the 12 months. وَمِنْهَا أَرْبَعَةُ حُرُمْ, and from amongst them 4 are considered to be holy. There are 4 months within the 12 months which are considered to be holy. From amongst them, one is the month of Muharram. The month of Ramadan is not considered to be a holy month, according to the ayah of the verse, but the month of Muharram is. Why? There's history behind the month of Muharram. In order to understand the history behind the month of Muharram, let's go back and speak about the people of Jahiliyyah. You see, the people of Jahiliyyah, they were the worst of communities. We've heard this many times before, that they were the worst of the civilizations that has existed in dunya altogether. You're talking about a community that had no infrastructure. No community can survive without its basic necessities, can it? There you find that the people of Jahiliyyah, not only the basics, they did not even have the basics to create a civilization. Economically, it was in shambles. Politically, it was in shambles. They had no economic system, they had no political system, they had no social system. It was a community without schools, they had no schooling systems, they had no universities, they had no government, they had no hospitals, yes, but interestingly, they had a place of worship. They had temples in which idols were placed in, and they would go and they would worship these idols. You find that the people of Jahiliyyah, they had no economical system, which meant that the poor became poorer and the rich were rich, very rich. They say that one of the habits of the people of Jahiliyyah was that they never located themselves to one particular location. They would always move about. They would go where the water is. So whenever they would find water and greenery, they would settle in that particular area until the water is dried up and the greenery is used. They would then pack their things and they would move to a different location. Never did they think to themselves, look, there is water, there is greenery, let's create a society, let's create a system where we can create a self-sufficient system. Never did they think about these themselves. They would move around constantly from one location to another. This was the people of Arabia. Economically, if a person needed to pay bills, for example, if they needed to start a business, they would go to the loan sharks and they would loan money from them. Yes, they would be indebted to them. And loan sharks, as you know, the interest rates were very high. So as soon as this person would take the money, he would spend the rest of his life paying interest. Yes, not the actual loan, but the interest. And so you found that the rich became richer and the poor became poorer. So there was a massive divide when it came to the financial system that existed in amongst the people of Jahiliyyah. Secondly, the political system. There were no governments, there were no prime ministers, there was no king or queen, there was no MPs, yes, there were no there was no parliament. And what that meant was there were no judges, what that meant was there was no security, what that meant was there were no police. When a crime took place, the people would take the affairs into their own hands. The people would take the affairs into their own hands. If I am victimized, for example, by a particular person, if I am oppressed by a particular person, my tribe would support me and gain revenge for me. This was the system that existed in the time of Jahiliyyah. And because people used to take justice into their own hands, this caused a lot of bloodshed. Shedding blood was common amongst the people of Jahiliyyah. They used to go around killing one another. War used to take place between the two tribes, and this was perfectly normal. Killing one another became as easy as breathing. And this was their society, this was part of their culture. Socially, for example, we've had this ayah of the Holy Quran, they used to bury their daughters alive. People ask the question, if they used to bury their daughters alive, their infant daughters are alive, then how did the community go on to exist? I mean, for example, if there is a community without ladies, for example, how can the community carry on? One of the answers that the ulama gave was that no, not everyone used to bury their daughters alive. Only the people who are considered to be top of the chain, the hierarchy, top of the hierarchy chain, they used to bury their daughters alive. Why? Because they were so entrenched in killing one another. Because of tribal warfare was so vast in their particular society. They used to say to themselves that today I have been given a daughter. If I go into war with another tribe tomorrow and I lose, there's that potential of losing, yes, when you fight with someone. If I lose and my tribe loses, then the other tribe will take my women as slaves. They will take my daughter as slaves. So that to deter that potential aspect of taking place, they would bury their daughters alive. To deter that humiliation of being of the people saying that we conquered you, we overwhelmed you, we overpowered you, and now your daughters are our slaves. To deter that from happening, they used to bury their daughters alive. You find not only that, they used to bury their infant sons alive as well, out of fear of poverty. That when a person used to have, for example, infants in the family, they could not afford, they would go and they would bury. Whether it's a daughter or a son, they would bury their infants alive. This was the people of Jahiliyyah, and it was perfectly normal for them to do so. They used to go around killing one another. And this, if there was a grudge between two tribes, for example, this would trigger a war between the two tribes, and the killing that would take place would last for decades. There's an interesting story. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There's an interesting story of a man by the name of As'ad ibn Zurara. As'ad ibn Zurara, they say he was one of the tribal chiefs of the Khazraj. In Medina, there were two major tribes, the Aus and the Khazraj. Interestingly enough, the Aus and the Khazraj were in tribal war with one another. They were at war for over 100 years. That if you were to ask a Khazraji, yes, for what reason you fight this war, he wouldn't know. He wouldn't know what triggered the war. He would only know that he came into dunya, his parents taught him that he should fight this particular tribe, and he has taken on that sunnah, taqlidi, he's following that sunnah, that this person belongs from the tribe of the Aus and he must die, for example, by my hands. People would not understand why they are fighting. They would fight for the sake of fighting. So As'ad ibn Zurara, he says to himself, he was an elderly man, he said to himself, he said, as the leader of the Khazraj, I understand that my community in Medina is not progressing and not advancing because of this tribal warfare. Rather than fighting against each other, let's work together and create a better society. So he decided to go towards Mecca. He had many friends from the Banu Umayyah and the Banu Hashim in Mecca, the tribal chiefs of the Quraysh, and he wanted to seek help from them to try and extinguish this war that existed between the Aus and the Khazraj. So he goes into the house of Utbah ibn Rabi. He goes into the house of his good old friend Utbah. He says to Utbah, he says, look, this war that has taken place in the streets of Medina has to stop. I need resources. I need financial resources. I need manpower. Give me both of these and we can stop the war once and for all. Utbah replies, he says, I can't do that. He says, why? He says, because our financial resources and our manpower, we need it because there is a man by the name of Muhammad who is going around and he has introduced a new system in place. He has introduced a new religion. We are using our financial resources and our manpower to fight against this Muhammad. We need to get rid of it and we need to dedicate our resources in removing him. As'ad ibn Zurara understands. He leaves the house and he goes back to Medina. Before he goes to Medina, before he leaves Mecca to go towards Medina, he decides to perform Hajj. So the people of Jahiliyyah used to perform Hajj as well. So he says, let me go perform Hajj and then I'll go back to Medina. So he goes towards Masjid al-Haraam. And before he goes into Masjid al-Haraam, Utbah warns him. Utbah says, look, if you go towards Masjid al-Haraam, put cotton in your ears. Because this Muhammad, he stands in this particular area of Masjid al-Haraam and he propagates his message. If you were to listen to his message, You'll be intoxicated by his words. You'll be hypnotized by his words. Don't listen to him. Ignore him and perform your tawaf and leave. So As'ad goes towards the Masjid al-Haram. He puts cotton in his ears and he begins performing tawaf. Every time he performs tawaf, he comes towards Rasulullah. He sees Rasulullah standing in a particular location, propagating, doing tabligh of his religion. Every time he would perform tawaf, he would see Rasulullah. Until once he said to himself, he said, what's the worst that can happen? Let me go speak to Rasulullah. Let me go speak with this Muhammad and see what he has to say. Maybe he has an answer to my problem. He goes towards the Holy Prophet. He greets him. And then he says to the Prophet, he says, Ya Muhammad, I've heard that you have brought forth a religion, a system, a change. He says, yes, I'm coming forth with the religion of Islam. As'ad asks him, he says, Ya Muhammad, what are the teachings of your religion? Rasulullah doesn't say a single word. Instead, what happens is Jibreel descends and he begins to reveal 2 verses of Surah Al-An'am. These 2 verses are mentioned in Surah Al-An'am. 10 points that Rasulullah was commanded to say by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, As'ad, my religion teaches me how to worship one God, not to worship idols. He says, my religion teaches me, this is part of the ayah of the Holy Quran. He says, my religion teaches me to show respect to my parents. This tells us that the people of Jahiliyyah had no respect for their parents. He says, As'ad, my religion teaches me that infants should not be buried. They should not be killed out of fear of poverty. The people of Jahiliyyah used to do this. He said, As'ad, my religion teaches me justice, that when I trade with one another, when there is trade or transactions taking place with one another, there should not be any sort of deceit. Yes, there should be justice. The people of Jahiliyyah used to con one another. We have these today, yes, con artists. He said, As'ad, my religion teaches me to use my tongue eloquently and effectively, not to abuse and not to strike someone with words. That the people of Jahiliyyah, they were considered to be the worst of people because of the vile language and the foul language that they used to use. 10 points Rasulullah begins to narrate. As'ad ibn Zurara, he was God-smacked by the words of Rasulullah. As the leader of his community, he said to himself, he said, I as the leader of the Khazraj, I have so many problems in my community and I have no solutions for them. Here Rasulullah has come up, not only has he identified all of the problems of societies, understands that there is a problem, he understands what the problem is. Yes, we all know that there are problems in certain communities. But a true leader is someone who identifies what the problem is and comes up with a solution. He realized that Rasulullah was a divinely appointed man, because not only was he able to identify the problems, he came with a solution. And if this solution was enacted, all of the problems would disappear and dissolve. So they said that As'ad ibn Zurara converted. He embraced Islam on the spot. He said, I bear witness that there is no God but God, and that you, O Muhammad, are his messenger. And so he came towards the religion of Islam. In fact, As'ad ibn Zurara was a capitalist. He founded Medina, and he provided a path for Rasulullah to develop a political system in Medina. So Rasulullah migrates towards Medina, he establishes a political system, he establishes a military, and he conquers Mecca. Yes, it all happened because of As'ad ibn Zurara, because of the power and the influence of this As'ad ibn Zurara. So you find here in this particular area, these 10 things that the Quran speaks about, tells us how the people of Mecca, the advent of the religion of Islam. When Rasulullah came, Rasulullah was not introducing Islam, he was introducing a new system. A revolution. Yes, Rasulullah revolutionized the people of Mecca. He came forward with fascinating concepts. Respect to parents, respect to one another, do not kill, do not cause bloodshed, do not cheat in your transactions. These were basic rules that the people of Mecca had to follow. And by following these rules, they would go towards success, and the people of the community would progress and move forward and advance. When Islam was introduced to the people of Mecca, it was to revamp everything that they had known and everything that had been part of their culture, because their culture was so evil. I'll give you a very fascinating fact. They say that the people of Mecca were so evil, they were so uncivilized, that when you look at Mecca, when you look at the Arabian Peninsula, they were surrounded by two superpowers. You had the Byzantium Empire, and then you had the Persians. And these two were the powerful governing bodies of the world. One would rule one half and the other would rule the other half. Slap bang in the middle you had Mecca, or you had the Arabian Peninsula. The Arabs were so uncivilized that none of these two superpowers thought or gave second thought to conquer Mecca. They said to themselves, if we conquer Mecca, there's no point in doing so because these people are so uncivilized. There's absolutely no point in conquering Mecca. So they left Mecca as it was. For 300 years there was a war between these two superpowers. Never did they think about conquering Mecca because how uncivilized it was. When Rasulullah came with the religion of Islam, it was to revamp the whole situation in Mecca. But you have to bear in understand and keep in mind that there were certain things that Islam accepted from amongst the people of Mecca. Not everything about them were bad. There were some aspects which were good. Some aspects like what? Like they were very hospitable. Whenever they used to have guests in their house, they would, for example, honor their guests. They would provide meals which were better than their own meals. They would provide their guests with meals better than what they would eat themselves. This is something beautiful. Islam allows this. Islam took it on board. Islam didn't fight this and say this is an Arabian thing. This is a Jahili and cultural aspect of it, so it needs to be deleted. No, Islam said this is good. Let's take it on board. Another from amongst them was وَمِنْهَا أَرْبَعَةُ الْحُرُمِ, that the 4 sacred months. There was the sunnah amongst the people of Arabia that they would respect the 4 months. They were known as the 4 months of sanctity. And what that meant was because these people used to fight and engage in tribal warfare, it meant that whenever they would enter the time of the 4 months, any type of tribal warfare would be stopped. Shedding blood, killing, abusing, bullying, everything would stop in these 4 months. One of them was the month of Muharram. So whenever the Arabs would enter the month of Muharram, everything would cease, everything would stop. To the extent that if a person was to leave his home and he was to walk in the bazaar and he saw his own father's killer, in the month of Muharram he had no audacity to go and kill him and to seek revenge. Why? Because the month of Muharram was considered to be the month of sanctity. It was the month of peace. No bloodshed, no violence, nothing was allowed. It was a crime to lift a sword in the month of Muharram. You had to wait until the month of Muharram had finished for you to go seek vengeance for your father's killer. But in the month of Muharram, everything was on hold. Everything had to be paused. So you find here that the people of Arabia, they used to respect these 4 months. Amazingly, the month of Ramadan is not from amongst these 4 months. In fact, when you read the seerah of the Ahl al-Bayt, the seerah of Rasulullah, the battles that he had against the Quraysh of Mecca, some of them would take place in the month of Ramadan. The battle of Badr took place in the month of Ramadan. As in, we know that the month of Ramadan is the heart of the year, isn't it? Yet Rasulullah used to fight in the battle of Ramadan. Yes, Rasulullah would prepare for fighting, for example, Khandak. Yes, Khandak was prepared in the month of Ramadan. But in the month of Muharram, everything would cease, everything would stop. Not a single battle was taken place in the month of Muharram. Likewise, in the history of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, they say that the quarrel that existed with Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan had heightened to a level where they were now engaging with one another. The party of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was engaged, or they had to fight and stand up against the party of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. They say that when Amir al-Mu'mineen was heading towards the battle of Siffin, yes, he was heading towards Siffin, when he enters the month of Ramadan. When he enters the month of Ramadan, he delivers a speech and he says that in this month, not a single soul shall be killed. We will wait until the month of Muharram is finished, and then we will go towards Muawiyah and confront his army. But during the month of Muharram, not a single person is permitted to lift his sword. This was the respect of the month of Muharram. When you come towards Karbala, what do we see? We see Yazid ibn Muawiyah, he couldn't care less of his own culture. The culture of his father, Muawiyah, or the culture of his grandfather, Abi Sufyan. He couldn't care less. He was hastened towards giving or getting the bay'at of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam, and he couldn't care less how he got it. And in fact, he went so far as to shed his holy blood in the month of Muharram. That's why Imam al-Rida alayhi salam says they dissanctified, they dishonored the sanctity of the month of Muharram. The people of Jahiliyyah had respect for the month of Muharram, but Yazid ibn Muawiyah did not have respect for the month of Muharram. They say that when the head of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam was given to Yazid, they say he took the twig and he began slapping the teeth of Imam. Yes, and then the famous lines of poetry, what does he say? He says, I wish my father and my grandfather were here to witness what I have done for them, that I have now honored them by killing the holy blood of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, by shedding the holy blood of Imam al-Hussein. He dishonored the family of the Ahlul Bayt, trying to honor his own family, the Banu Umayyah, but he dishonored his own family by dishonoring the sanctity of the month of Muharram. So this was the first reason why the Ahlul Bayt should remember, or the people should remember the Ahlul Bayt, because they dishonored the sanctity of the month of Muharram. Then the Imam alayhi salam begins to examine. He says, remember Abu Abdullah because they dishonored his holy family. The month of Muharram, the tragedy of Karbala is a tragedy because of how the women were treated and how the children of the Ahlul Bayt were treated. One of the adab of war is to fight the men, not to fight the women and the children, especially when they are defenseless. The people of Arabia, the people of Jahiliyyah, they had respect for women to the extent that they would not abuse the women. If anyone was caught abusing a woman, yes, they would be dishonored by their own tribes. They would be exiled. But come on the 10th of Muharram, how were the women abused and how were the children abused? There's an interesting question. One of the companions came towards Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and he asked a profound question. He said, Ya Abu Abdullah, Ya ibn Rasulillah, why do we remember the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein in such a way that we do not remember the tragedy of any other Ahl al-Bayt? We remember Imam Hussein in such a way, we don't remember Rasulullah in the same way. We don't remember Amir al-Mu'mineen in the same way. We don't remember, for example, Fatima al-Zahra in the same way. Why is that? It's an interesting question. People ask this question. They say, well, what happens in Yemen today, for example? You think Saudi, for example, will stop their bombardments towards Yemen in the month of Muharram? It's the same principle, yes? The people of Jahiliyyah, they had respect. The Banu Umayyah, Yazid ibn Muawiyah never had respect for the month of Muharram. You think the superpowers today will have respect for the month of Muharram? Today we have this question. It's a very interesting question. They say people are dying in Palestine, for example. Children are amongst them. The way they are dying, the way they are killed, it's far worse than how the Ahlul Bayt were treated on the day of Muharram, on the 10th of Muharram. Why do we not remember them, but we remember the children of the Ahlul Bayt more? It's an issue, isn't it? It's a very profound question that people ask these days. This is the same question that the companion of the Imam asked. He said, Ya Rasul, Ibn Rasulullah, why do we remember Abu Abdullah in such a way that we don't remember anyone else in such a way? The Imam replies, he says, the reason is because he was one from amongst the Ahl al-Kisa. He was from the Ahl al-Kisa. The man replies, he says, the companion replies, he says, what does that mean? So what? The Imam expands his answer. He says, because he was part of the Ahl al-Kisa, there was no one to perform his azar. Companion is now confused. He says, what does that even mean? The Imam then begins to expand his answer even further. He says, the day when Rasulullah passed away, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Fatima al-Zahra, Imam Hassan, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam were there to perform his azar. When Imam Ali passed away, when Fatima al-Zahra passed away, Amir al-Mu'mineen was there, Imam Hassan was there, Imam Hussein alayhi salam were there performing the azar of Fatima al-Zahra. When Ali alayhi salam passed away, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein were there performing his azar. When Imam Hassan passed away, Imam Hussein was there performing his azar. But when Imam Hussein when he became shaheed and he passed away, there was no one there to perform his azar from Ahl al-Kisa. The companion, when he heard this answer, he said to the Imam, he said, what does that mean, Ya Imam? Imam al-Sajjad was there. Your grandfather was there performing his azar for 32 years. He says, Sahih, my grandfather was there and he is part of the Ahl al-Bayt. He is Hujjatullahi fi ardih. He says, but he was not part of Ahl al-Kisa. He says, Ya Imam, what does that mean? He says, Imam al-Sajjad, Sayyid al-Abideen. He was not part of Ahl al-Kisa. Never did he see Rasulullah, never did he interact with Rasulullah, never did he hear from Rasulullah, never did he speak with Rasulullah. He did not gain knowledge from Rasulullah, but Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Fatima al-Zahra all interacted with Rasulullah to the extent that when the people would walk when they would walk into the streets, the people would look at them and they would remember Rasulullah. Imam al-Sajjad was not of that caliber. Although he is an Imam, he was not part of Ahl al-Kisa. And the reason why we remember Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is because he was part of Ahl al-Kisa. And they dishonored that sanctity. This is the second reason as to why we remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam as explained by Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. And that's why they say that one day when Rayyan ibn al-Shabib enters the presence of the Imam alayhi salam says to him, O Rayyan ibn al-Shabib, he says, Ibn al-Shabib, in kunta bakiyan, fibki ala jaddi Abi Abdullah. He says, O Rayyan, if you were to cry over anything in dunya, then cry for my grandfather Abi Abdullah. Why, Ya Imam? He says, the reason is because he was slaughtered the way a sheep is slaughtered. He says, O Rayyan, they dishonored the sanctity of the Ahl al-Bayt. The women were taken in chains from Karbala to Kufa and from Kufa to Sham. He says, O Rayyan, they killed 17 members of the Ahl al-Bayt. There are no equal to these Ahl al-Bayt. Remember them and cry for them. They say that when he would engage in the azar of Abu Abdullah alayhi salam, that when the soldiers came towards the house of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, set it on fire. They say the companions of the Imam alayhi salam came towards the Imam and they said, Ya Ibn Rasul, I'm being affected by the heat of the flames. I saw not the fire. He says, when I heard the cries of my women, I heard the cries of Zainab al-Kubra, I heard the cries of Sakina ibn Sa'd burned down the tents. He said, I reminded myself how the women were treated on the 10th of Muharram. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون ولعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. We end with the short dua inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه. Ya Hussein, 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 Ya Hussein. As the Shaykh had mentioned in his Masa'ib, those burning tents, as if though the poet writes that as if though the Haram, the ladies of the Haram of Sayyid al-Shuhada would have been خیموں سے زینب کی صدائی عباس کہاں ہو تم جلتے ہوئے خاص کہاں ہو تم عباس کہاں ہو تم جلتے ہوئے خیموں سے زینب کی صدائی عباس کہاں ہو تم نہ سر پہ رہی چادر نہ سر پہ رہی چادر نہ میرا بچا بھائی عباس کہاں ہو تم چلتے ہوئے خیموں سے زینب کی صدائی عباس کہاں ہو تم جلتے ہوئے خیموں سے زینب کی صدائی عباس
हो तुम। अब्बास चले आओ खैमों में गरीबों के, भूखे और प्यासे हैं लूटे नसीबों के। सज्जाद को होश नहीं, सज्जाद को होश नहीं, कुलसूम है घबराई। अब्बास कहाँ हो तुम, जलते हुए खैमों से ज़ैनब की सदाई। अब्बास कहाँ हो तुम, जलते हुए खैमों से ज़ैनब की आई। अब्बास कहाँ हो तुम, हाय शेमर लईनों ने मारे हैं सकीना को, हाय फूल से गालों पर, हाय हाय तमाचे। आ जाओ चला गाजी, आ जाओ चचा गाजी, रो रो के वो चिल्लाई। अब्बास कहाँ हो तुम, जलते हुए खैमों से ज़ैनब की सदाई। अब्बास को calling the Imam of our time. Ya Imam Zamana, Ya Imam Zamana, Ya Imam Zamana, Ya Imam Mana, Ya Imam Zamana, Zamana. يا قائم العجل، يا قائم العجل، يا قائم، يا قائم، يا قائم، يا قائم، يا قائم. محمد وآل محمد صلوات. متوجه زيارة عاشوراء. سيدي ومولاي ومعتمدي ورجاء ذخري وذخيرتي في الآخرة ودنياي الإمام الحسين عليه السلام، زيارة مني ونيابة عن والدي وعن والد والدي وعن إخواني وعن إخواتي وعن جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات، قربة طاعة إلى الله تعالى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليكم.
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والبتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد أزمت الرزية وجلت وعزمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعزمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات، فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. بريت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجانة، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله الشمرة، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتناقبت لقتالك بأبي أنت وأمي. لقد أزم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك والجور عليكم، وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجور عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. بريت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وتقربوا إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم، وحرب لمن حاربكم، وولي لمن والاكم، وعدو لمن أعداك دنيا والآخرة. وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاركم مع إمام الهدى ذان الذي لكم عنده، أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته مصيبة ما أعظمها. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم لن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك لعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب الأليم. وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي ببراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لأن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تاب له ولا ذلك. اللهم لنا الإصابة التي جاءت للحسين وشايع عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت. سلام على الحسين وعلى علي ابن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي ابن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم للثانية والثالثة ورابع. اللهم لن يزيد خامسا، ولن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانة وعمر بن سعد والشمرة وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجدة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيته اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مواجههم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوى وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على
Brothers and sisters, inshallah, just make note of this. According to the moon sighting update, tonight was the eve of the 1st of Muharram. So the tomorrow, the day that is coming, is Tuesday, the 1st of Muharram, September 11th. And as Sayyid Imam al-Mujtaba says, La yawm ka yawma Aba Abdullah. The Ashura of Sayyid al-Shuhada will be on the 20th of September, which will be a Thursday. So 20th of September will be the day of Ashura. It will be a Thursday. أعظم الله أجركم.
I'm stalking. I don't want to flex out. You don't want to flex with it.
Don't make me open the RBC app real quick.
The other two pages are lit.
Yeah, sure.
Look at that.
Yo, I do need
And then another four.
Don't make me open the RBC app real quick. Don't make me do
Where do you
that.
put this?
Oh, you're sorry.
Is this a K-pop?
Yes, I'll just announce it. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد. So brothers and sisters, just a couple announcements. What was mentioned regarding the membership forms or the general donation forms, we have envelopes over here that any brother or sister would like to make any donation or fill in our membership form, they can do so. They can take it away with themselves if they want and submit it on any of these nights, inshallah, or later on as well. Just let the committee know. The other announcement is regarding the contest that we had for the youth. So please, all the younger brothers, they can give in their notes to Brother Ahmed Gawhari on the men's side, and on the ladies' side, the young sisters can give it to Sister Arif, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Yes.
Can I talk to you about the volunteer hours?
Okay, I'll just close this, and then, because then everyone will hear.
I don't know.